days of summer, the jasmine's in bloom. July is dressed up and playing her tune, and I come home from a hard day's work, and you're waiting there, not a care in the world. See the smile waiting in the kitchen, food cooking and the plates for two. Feel the arms that reach out to hold me in the evening when the day is through. Summer breeze makes me feel fine, blowing through the jasmine in my mind. Summer breeze makes me feel fine, blowing through the jasmine in my mind.
Winding your way down on Baker Street, lighting your head and dead on your feet. Well, another crazy day. You'll drink the night away and forget about everything. This city desert makes you feel so cold. It's got so many people, but it's got no soul, and it's taken you so long to find out you were wrong when you thought it held everything. You used to think that it was so easy. You used to say that it was so easy, but you're trying now. Another year and then you'd be happy. Just one more year and then you'd be happy, but you're crying now. Way down the street there's a light in his place. He opens the door, he's got that look on his face, and he asks you where you've been. You tell him who you've seen, and you talk about anything. He's got this dream about buying some land. He's gonna give up the booze and the one night stands, and then he'll settle down in some quiet little town and forget about everything. But you know he'll always keep moving. You know he's never gonna stop moving, 'cause he's rolling, he's the rolling stone.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program will begin in a few moments.
Oceans apart, day after day, and I slowly go insane. I hear your voice on the line, but it doesn't stop the pain. If I see you next to never, then how can we say forever? Wherever you go, whatever you do, I will be right here waiting for you. Whatever it takes, or how my heart breaks, I will be right here waiting for you. I took for granted all the times that I thought would last somehow. I hear the laughter, I taste the tears, but I can't get near you now. Oh, can't you see it, baby? You've got me going crazy. Wherever you go,
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program will begin in a few moments.
whatever it takes, or how my heart breaks, I will be right here waiting for you. I wonder how we can survive this romance. But in the end, if I'm with you, I'll take the chance. Oh, can't you see it, baby? You've got me going crazy. Wherever you go, whatever you do, I will be right here waiting for you. Whatever it takes, or how my heart breaks, I will be right here waiting for you.
Vaisala's origins date back to the 1930s, when Professor Vilho Vaisala invented some of the operating principles of a radio sound. The company's very first order for 20 radio sounds was sent to MIT in 1936. Active cooperation with the American meteorological community has been an important part of Vaisala's journey ever since. AMS is an important influencer and driver in atmospheric research and development of a modern weather, water and climate community, not only in North America but also globally. Every day our lives are affected by weather and climate. Natural disasters can change the planet, putting people and property at risk. From hailstorms, droughts and severe winter weather to typhoons, hurricanes and floods. Natural disasters impact every region across the globe, and their impact on the economy can be equally extreme. We live in a world in which we need to solve more and more challenging and complex problems. Vaisala is investing heavily in promoting research on extreme weather. As Hurricane Dorian hit the Bahamas in September 2019, Vaisala's systems were put up to the test. With the help of Vaisala's solutions, more accurate information and alerts could be sent out. If the hurricane had been well monitored and timely alerts given in advance, the consequences could have been much worse. These are challenges where we all need to work in active cooperation, and we cheer AMS on for their next 100 years of contributing to better and sustainable future.
Welcome everyone to the centennial of the American Meteorological Society. So we're beginning a week of celebration and science and getting to know your neighbour. So we're going to begin today with a talk and then a discussion with an amazing woman. So Gina McCarthy, until recently, was a professor of practice public health in the Department of Environmental Health at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health and the director of the Center for Climate Health and Global Environment at Harvard Chan School of Public Health. In this capacity, she led the development of the school strategy in climate science, health, and sustainability. She strengthened the climate science and health curriculum and was a liaison with climate sciences across the university. Just last week, and while continuing her affiliation with Harvard, Gina has taken on a new role as President and CEO of the Natural Resources Defense Council. Gina McCarthy has been a leading advocate for common sense strategies to protect public health and the environment for more than 30 years. She served under President Barack Obama as the 13th Administrator of the EPA from 2013 to 2017. Her tenure as EPA Administrator heralded a paradigm shift in national environmental policy, expressly linking it with global public health. She led EPA initiatives that cut air pollution, protected water resources, reduced greenhouse gases, and strengthened chemical safety to better protect more Americans, and especially the most vulnerable, from negative health impacts. McCarthy signed the Clean Power Plan, which set the first ever national standards for reducing carbon emissions from existing power plants, underscoring the country's commitment to domestic climate action and spurring international efforts that helped secure the Paris Climate Agreement. Gina McCarthy worked with the United Nations and the World Health Organization on a variety of efforts and represented the US on global initiatives to reduce high-risk sources of pollution. A longtime public servant, Gina was previously Assistant Administrator for the EPA Office of Air Pollution for Air and Radiation, Commissioner of the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection, Deputy Secretary of Massachusetts Office of Commonwealth Development, and Undersecretary of Policy for the Massachusetts Executive Office of Environmental Affairs. You can see we're not kidding when we say long history of public service. She's strengthened collaborative efforts with public health agencies and organizations across the US to identify and reduce threats to human health from harmful air pollution, including carbon pollution, that fuels climate change by updating health and technology-based emission standards, establishing greenhouse gas standards for cars, trucks, promoting energy efficiency and alternative fuels, and mitigating harmful exposures to indoor air pollution. After the Obama administration, McCarthy became a senior leadership fellow at both the Harvard Kennedy School of Government and the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. In addition to her work at Harvard, McCarthy serves on the board of the Energy Foundation and Ceres. We congratulate her on beginning this month as President and CEO of the Natural Resources Defense Council. So, welcome, Gina.
Thanks, Jenny. And boy, do I feel old. Maybe you're right. I am a little long in the tooth, but I thank you for allowing me to be here, and I want to thank the members at AMS for letting me come and celebrate your 100th anniversary. Nowadays, I find myself relishing every opportunity I can to celebrate anyone or anything older than I am. I know this is the start of AMS's second century, but it wasn't all that long ago that you were pretty low-tech. You know, when I was a kid, one of my heroes was Don Kent. Does everybody remember Don? At least in this area we do. I watched him on my 3-channel black and white television, standing in front of a blackboard with a few pieces of chalk, at least 2 for redundancy. He would talk about low pressure and high pressure areas and other things that no one really understood then. And my guess is that nobody really understands today. And he'd tell us what the likelihood was that it would rain tomorrow, or when the snow that was burying us during the blizzard of '78 might begin to abate. And while he may not have been right most of the time, or even much of the time, who knows? My parents never missed watching Don Kent, because you know why? Because he was talking about our weather. He was talking about our lives, something really meaningful to us, to help us prepare for rain or snow or cold or heat or wind or hurricanes. He was essentially part of the family. We thought he cared about us. I'm sure that he did. This was one of the first times that I understood that science could be so relevant and so meaningful and so personal in our lives beyond medical science, which was then really still in its infancy. And now you have all your fancy visuals, your computerized graphics, your complex analysis, and even Doppler radars, which weather people say at least 25 times every time they're giving a weather report. And I still have no idea what the hell a Doppler radar is, but it sounds incredibly great. And you guys still remain the coolest dudes and dudettes ever. Well, maybe not Don Kent cool, but you're still pretty good. Because you produce and deliver science that matters. You know, I have visited the Weather Channel in Atlanta a bunch of times to talk about climate change on Weather Geeks and other shows with Marshall and others, and no one there called into question my sanity or my patriotism, which made it way more fun than congressional hearings. Because at those hearings, I would be browbeaten by folks who I bet watched Don Kent way back when, and likely watched Al Roker or Jim Cantore or Dylan Dreyer or Stephanie Abrams now, but somehow they just couldn't get their heads around the issue of climate change. Well, now they got to get their heads out of that and into the real world, and that's what today for me is all about. Today we have no choice but to get our heads around climate change, not just a few of us, but all of us, and not just politicians and scientists, but normal human beings if you have ever met a normal human being. We just do not have the luxury to keep denying overwhelming science or disregarding the need to act if we hope to retain, which are absolute human necessities that are at risk in a changing climate, our climate crisis. Clean air and water, fertile land, and special places that we all cherish. Our communities where we can feel safe and secure, with a roof over our head, with food on the table, protected from pollution, and resilient in the face of storms, floods, droughts, and wildfires that challenge our health and our well-being. Not to mention whole communities and whole island nations like the Maldives, and even continents like Australia that seem to be right now the picture of a hideous sci-fi inferno. In short, we need to redesign our world to one that keeps us healthy and safe and does not leave increasing numbers of the poor and the disenfranchised left behind. So while we have done a hell of a job getting people's attention by covering hurricanes and tornadoes and floods and droughts and wildfires and other disasters, it is time. It's time to shift gears to start motivating people to act, not to have their heads in the sand. We have to empower them, not frighten them. We have to build hope. We have to envision a future together, and we have to build it together. I know that sounds incredibly daunting to all of us who know the extent of the challenge that we're facing. But let's not forget that way back when, right here in this country, some of the preeminent pollution capitals of the world existed right here. In California, school was canceled for smog days. Orange County got its name probably from the color of the sky, not the fruit that was grown there. Today we point fingers at Beijing and New Delhi, but you should have seen Pittsburgh in its heyday. You should have seen that little Boston Harbor out there because it was a sewer, not the shining example of this city's rebirth as it is today. So in the 60s and 70s, as pollution worsened all across the country, so did the pressure that millions of people put on who were calling for change, who knew we were heading for a future that was disastrous. So Earth Day was born, and the US EPA was created by one of the greatest presidents in the history of the United States of America, and a Republican to boot, and you are right, it is funny, that was Richard Nixon. I was just kidding on the greatest part. And the US Congress passed laws like the Clean Air Act that paved the way for new technologies, new products, new procedures, new ways of thinking and living that have made our world cleaner and healthier. So here you are, 50 years later, I am the head of the Natural Resources Defense Council, and you're not. And what do you think I am going to do today? Do you think I'm going to hide my head in the sand? Do you think I'm going to call it a day and give up on the future? No, I don't think so. Just because climate change is really, really hard, well, get over it. It's time to buckle up, folks, because we have a journey we have to take together. Look, I know that the Obama-era rules and the science that guided those actions, well, it's all under attack. Duh, how could I not know that? But I am still going to be here as a climate optimist. I know I got them over the finish line. I know that those rules followed the law and they followed the science. And I know I worked for years, just as Jane Lubchenco, my colleague, worked for years to make people understand the challenges we were facing and to do something about it. We learn from the public. We listen to the people that we regulate, and we designed and passed reasonable, cost-effective rules that have helped to support what is truly a remarkable clean energy revolution. So I know that EPA leadership today has an incredibly difficult row to hoe if they expect to roll back all those rules, because they gave people more ability to live healthier lives while our economy rebounded. And I know that NRD has sued EPA about 100 times since this administration came in, and they have a 90% success rate. Do you know why I'm at NRDC? That's why. And guess what? NRD is going to keep suing and we're going to keep winning if I have anything to say about it, and I do. And folks, don't forget that when Washington does not lead, when they fail to have a plan that moves this country forward on issues that threaten our lives and our livelihood, and even worse, when they have a plan to turn the clock back, the people in this country don't just sit around on our couch, turn on Netflix, watch 7 years of Games of Thrones, and eat ice cream. I tried that. It's painful. No, we step up and we do something. So let's stop being angry and stop being anxious. Let's raise hope together. Let's be climate optimists. If you haven't already, please find ways to get engaged. We need your voices in the mix. We simply can't turn our backs on all those amazing young people who are demanding climate justice. They're afraid that they don't have a future. They're talking about not having children because they can't see a path forward for themselves. We need to stand with them and forge that path forward. I visit a lot of colleges these days, and I go because I'm tired of them being angry and anxious, and I want to turn it into hope and constructive action. That's what you can help to happen. I tell them to take a break from watching the never-ending DC news. I let them know that when I wake up every morning, I often find my husband, Ken, whom I love dearly, grumbling and even yelling at himself about something he heard on CNN or MSNBC. Flip, 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 one or the other. So I tell them, you know, Ken, I do love you dearly. And then I lovingly tell him to shut the hell up and turn the TV off. And I offer some advice to the students that is very similar because, you know, when you get your head out of Washington politics, you can begin to understand what's happening in the real world because DC is not the real world. It never has been. Good things are happening in the real world. People care about clean air and clean water and safe places to live. They care and they need a stable climate. Democrats and Republicans. Hey, I worked for 6 governors. 5 of them were Republicans. And they were never thrilled about dirty air or water. Guess why? Their constituents didn't care for it. So let's get our heads out of partisan politics and let's work together. With the advent of market-winning renewable energy and energy efficiency programs, the clean energy train in this country and elsewhere has simply left the station, and it is not turning around, and it's not going to slow down. That is hopeful news for the 9 million people every year who die from pollution across the world, especially the 7 million who die from air pollution every year, especially the 93% of those victims who are unlucky enough to live in low-income or middle-income countries. And it's damn good news for the 4,000 kids who fall prey to asthma each year simply because of the unfortunate circumstance that they live along our major highways. We have the technology to save these lives today. We just need to work hard and stay committed to build the kind of communities that we would be proud to leave to our children and our grandchildren. Don't forget, when DC falls asleep, progress continues. In fact, sometimes it speeds up at other levels of government, and there are clear and remarkable signs that our democracy is waking up. States and cities are stepping up and they're taking charge. They're designing and they're pushing solutions that work. In time, they will drive federal action, but certainly not now or in the imminent future. So we have to get over that. We have to look at the women and the scientists who marched today. Who ever thought I'd see scientists marching? That one sign said it has to be desperate when geeks are forced to march. We have Black Lives Matter, we have the Me Too movement, we have the Sunrise Movement, we have people, young, old, and old Irish women like me getting fed up, and we are speaking up. And today I'm pleased to say that most people in the United States fully understand 3 things about climate change, and you're going to repeat them after me because we're all going to be on the same page as you head into this conference. Are you ready? Number 1, climate change is real. Not good enough. Climate change is real. Man-made emissions have caused it. That's why women need to rule the world. Say it! All right, that's a little bit of a joke, except that there's recent studies that show that women leaders are pushing harder and stronger actions than their male counterparts across the world. Doesn't it figure? Look, even look at the Democrats that are running for president. They're all trying to outdo one another to deliver the best climate plan. And I hope so, because my plan is to make sure that they feel the heat from the people in this country who care about their families and their children's future. So keep thinking, keep talking, and then do something. Did you know that 25 states across the U.S. have joined together and they've pledged to meet the Paris goals? Now, you may say, what's 25 states? That represents 55% of the U.S. population. If you join them together, they would be the third largest economy in the world. So don't tell me that the United States of America has given up this fight, or I should. We are just getting started, and hundreds of cities across the U.S. and beyond are also pledging to meet the Paris commitments. And they will continue to need our support. Climate change cannot be solved without you, without your knowledge, without your enthusiasm and your engagement. Just as these states and cities have pledged to be all in, you, I, all of us have to do the same. We don't need urban and rural communities that are in danger. We need them to be resilient in our changing climate. We need them to work together, and we need to rekindle our sense of community and our willingness to cut through partisan politics for the sake of ourselves, our families, our children. Isn't that what this conference is really now all about? Isn't it about you, scientists, researchers, analysts, broadcasters, bloggers, experts, whoever the hell you are out there? It's about you getting engaged, thinking about how to explain to people the difference between weather and climate. Because you can make all the difference in the world if you become active and engaged. You can be the voice of Don Kent in every family's head. And Lord knows the climate crisis needs more Don Kents and more voices in the mix. Because like it or not, you are trusted advisors. People do listen to you and will listen to you. You can help them understand climate, and you can explain to them that climate change is not a partisan political issue. It is pure and simply science. That's what it is. You can help push back when someone dismisses climate change by saying, oh, the climate is always changing. Oh, I hate that one. It just drives me crazy. You know I know that it's not about the fact that the climate is always changing. Duh, sure it is. But it's about the pace of the change that we see today and the way it's accelerating in an alarming way that we simply can't hold off adapting to try to ensure that we have a future on this planet. So my hope and plea is that during this gathering, you'll spark these conversations among all your colleagues, and you'll leave here committed and better prepared to work for more resilient communities, to inspire people to take action, and you yourself to demand action. You can help one another connect the dots between research and how to make it personal and relevant in the real world, because your voice matters. You can motivate action to build a better future. Look, I think people need new infrastructure investment. I think they need investment that actually makes sense to them, like renewable energy and transportation corridors that move people, goods, and services faster without relying on fossil fuels that are polluting our air, our rivers, and our streams. Have you driven through Boston lately? Don't try unless it's between the hours of 11:30 and 2. Beyond that, you can't get there from here. We have to do better. We have to have drainage systems that are updated based on today's storms so we can keep our water clean, safe, swimmable, and fishable. How does walkable and bikeable communities and neighborhoods sound to you? Or more trees and green spaces and cooling centers to protect our kids? Are these really bad things? Are these things we're going to reject? Does anybody dislike a tree or a playground? You know, we need to protect the elderly and the homeless from the heat stress we're already facing. And we need buildings that are efficient and resilient to climate impacts, that are located away from coastlines that will no longer be coastlines, and flood zones that are based on real data that exists today. Just think about this. Does anything I just say sound absolutely ridiculous or even that difficult to do? If everybody said it ought to be done? Does it seem like it will save money or cost money? Is it really going to be a sacrifice to move those things forward, even if climate change wasn't a threat? We are talking about moving towards a better future. What in God's name are we really fighting about? It's not that. It's not those steps. So we have to demand it together. So I am really not ready to stop fighting about climate change anytime soon. And I ask you to jump in as well, if you haven't already, because the climate fight really isn't, as some people suggest, about the planet. Because the climate fight is really about us. It's about saving us. The planet could care less if we exist on it. We care. In fact, I am quite convinced that the planet probably thinks of human beings as the most annoying species ever. We keep changing everything like idiots. If the planet had a head, it would be scratching it. Look, climate change is about our families. It's about our health. It's about our well-being. It's about my 3 children, and it's about my 2 grandchildren. And for me, and I'm sure for you, it just doesn't get any more personal than that. So if you are in the broadcast community and you decide to talk about climate change, then bless you. But why not show a picture of a kid with asthma rather than a glacier falling into the sea or a polar bear? All right, the NRDC logo is a polar bear, so you can actually use that every once in a while. You can help make climate change personal, real, understandable. You can make science work for all of us. Folks will speak up if you give them the knowledge and the information they need. They will challenge the status quo. They will help us rebuild our sense of community and keep our families safe in our ever-changing world. So stay hopeful. Keep your foot on the gas, accelerator. Put your faith in human ingenuity and entrepreneurship. That is how the United States of America and our countries work. That's how we all move forward. So let me end with a quote from my dad, since he's not here and he won't mind me updating his words to fit today's times. When I was a kid and complained about one thing or another, which admittedly happened quite a bit, my dad would listen for a while and then he'd put his hands up and he'd say something like, "Gina, stop whining, pick up your big girl pants and do something." So that's what I'm telling you. Pick up your big girl pants, your big boy pants, or your gender neutral pants and go do something. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Gina.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, after that inspiration, we've been asked to think about climate change, to think about our world in a different way to what we brought into the room. So we've now got time with Gina for a discussion. You'll see information about how to use an app to generate questions and send questions to us, and we're just going to have a conversation.
Hi, Jenny.
Hi, Gina.
I like that vest.
Thank you. It's kind of practical.
Anything or anyone have to die in order for...
No.
Okay, good. Just checking.
No.
Just checking.
A whole lot of faux furs died in the making.
Just for the listening audience.
Yeah. So I wanted to start with something. I grew up in Australia, and as you said, an area the size of Delaware has already burned in Australia this summer, and we're not even to the bushfire season yet. So is that what it's going to take for people to really decide they need to do something?
Well, here, I've tried to look at what actually makes change happen. And, because I honestly believe that we have lots of solutions, that if we broadened the acceptance of those and demanded them, would be in a much better place. Would we be at the end of the line that we need to be? No. But it would build momentum. And I think the challenge we face is that where climate change is concerned, even its name sort of implies we can't do anything about it. And I think people have just, even with issues like you're talking about, I've looked at those pictures, they're extraordinary, and they're frightening. I just don't think they quite tell people that it's something they can do.
Yeah.
And I know that this administration is fighting a lot of the rules by saying, well, or citing of pipelines, well, that one pipeline's not going to make a difference. All you can do is actually reduce worldwide greenhouse gases by 1%. What good's that? Yeah. So somehow we need to figure out how to motivate people more broadly. And generally, people don't follow losers. They don't generally follow morose human beings. They generally follow people who say, we can do this. We've got to get to the moon, point at it, and say we're going to go there. And so I think we just need, in my world, I think we need to motivate change, not just by pointing at the problem, but by really pointing at solutions. They can change the world if we can build a big enough movement to do that.
Well, you did offer one suggestion. So how do we get women running the world? And I actually have that question also from a queer member of our community and from students. How do they help run the world?
I think they're beginning to take over the world. I just don't think they know that. It's not yet tag, you're it. We've screwed it up so much, now it's yours. I think it's more that if I look at where change has happened, it is young people. I've studied things, I'm at the School of Public Health, so I look at these things, and I've looked at tobacco and how it took us 40 years to figure out how to make that issue clear. But the real change came in people's behavior on smoking when the secondary smoke issue came up. When people realized that they were harming their own children with their habits, things changed. And so I think people care about doing the right thing. I think we need to mobilize that, and we need to let them know similarly that what they do can either make or break what happens in the world, and empower them to do it. And the only way I know how to do that is act like a little Pied Piper, play a good tune, let them know what they have to do, and start demanding it up. But I've learned a long time ago, and even through 8 years in government, I loved the time. We worked hard. We did a lot of good things. But most of what I did was based on stuff we did in states and cities. It never, the central government is not the place to start innovating. It's the place to start kicking them in the butt.
Well, so I've had people here are asking, how can I as an individual make a change? And given that there are so many scientists in the room, is it right for a scientist to politicize what they're saying?
No, I don't think you politicize it at all. I think part of the problem that we have is, at least in the US, and I know in Australia and other places, it's become, a very political issue. And if you think about it, when is the last time that a science issue became so partisan? That if you're a Democrat, you had to believe it. If you're a Republican here, you can't. What the hell is that?
I'm puzzled about how it became, like, how it flipped, how it started off with the Republicans leading
Yeah.
in the EPA.
It's a good question. Well, you know, honestly, if you look back, there's great data during Ronald Reagan's administration that they were looking at climate and the challenge of climate change. They just thought it was hundreds of years away. Oops, not quite. And so I do think I think we all have to reject the idea that climate change is a political issue or a partisan issue. The reason why your voice is so valuable is that you're a scientist. Just speak about the science. And you know, just people will trust your judgment if you talk about what you know, not demand specific things of them, but just inform them. You know, if people do believe scientists. I think the challenge that we face, and one of the reasons I went to Harvard School of Public Health, was to try to make sure that the students learned how to communicate, not in language of science, but in real language. You know, because it was great for Don Kent to come up and say, oh, I think it's likely to rain tomorrow. That was better than what we have. But if you go, I think climate change is likely caused by humans, we're dead meat.
Yeah.
You got to be more colloquial in the way you communicate so people understand, because hardly anybody remembers that the way we do science is to put a hypothesis out there and figure out what's closest and what, you know, they just think we talk in facts, and we don't speak like that. And honestly, when you go to communities, you have to speak in language they understand, not language that's incorrect from a science perspective, but a more colloquial way of making the same point in whatever way you're comfortable with.
Well, many people are actually asking, how do I approach someone who's resistant to the idea that we can do something about climate change? So could you give us something more specific on how we might approach that?
Well, I think what I tried to do when I was speaking a little while earlier is give you some of the sort of more simple ways in which we can actually make lives better, that people won't argue about. You know, I do not know how people in the city of Boston think they're going to get around if we don't invest more in public transportation. How are we going to get through the city?
Yeah.
You know, it's just going to get busier and busier. So we have to think now about how to invest in that, because the timeline for those investments are rather long. And so I think you need to get very simple. I think you need to explain to people that we're not actually asking them to sacrifice. We are actually asking them to think about getting to a world that's a little bit better, our lives that are more community-based. Our lives, a place where there are more trees and green spaces, a place where the air pollution levels aren't so bad, a place where we actually can have food on the table that is nutritious and come from a farm that's local, or come from a farm that is regenerative, where they're investing in the soil instead of fossil fuel-based, you know, fossil fuel-based fertilizers and pesticides, or a place where, you know, we're producing plastics that end up in our oceans. There's so many ways in which you could talk about the actions that make it seem reasonable and okay to do, and also something that people would be demanding even if climate didn't change.
Yep.
That's all I can think of, is to get way more concrete. Tell people that they can do this, reference the work that was done in the environment a long time ago, how we changed from rivers burning to the Cuyahoga being fishable today and swimmable. Come on, let's get real and give people real hope.
So I have a question I'm going to read verbatim. I'm a 10-year-old Australian guest at the AMS. My question is, how can we preserve our forests so that it won't burn? I'm thrilled we have a 10-year-old in the audience.
Well, they are the people that we're working for, aren't they? I think, well, there's a couple of things, and that is that obviously forests need to be nurtured like any other natural system. It's not just about leaving it alone. It's about making sure that we do the work we need to keep our forests healthy. I think I certainly am guilty of this, and many others are, who come from the environmental side and the side of people who regulate pollution, is we forget often to talk about the special places that need to be nurtured and preserved that offer the sink for our greenhouse gases. And we don't spend a great deal of time or money in the US actively preserving those places. And I think that needs to change. So we need to invest in our forests and our farmlands. We need to invest in our oceans that we now know has real opportunity to act, to capture carbon and sequester it. We also know that we have an ability to educate our leaders to demand that kind of effort. And we need to remember that most of us are in democratic systems which demand that we get out and vote and actively participate in our democracy. If we don't, then there's no one else that's going to take our place.
Well, speaking of taking our place, a lot of people want to know if you've met Greta.
I have not. I regret that, but I will. I'll follow her around like everybody else, I think, and figure out how to catch up with her. I think she's a remarkable person, as we all know. I've spent a lot of time with some of the leaders of the various youth movements here. I've done the youth strike and done a lot of that. So I'm pretty familiar with what Greta stands for and the kind of movement she is heading. And I have to say, I'm both excited and distressed by it. I'm excited because I think it's where the energy is. I'm at NRDC to make sure that our view of how to act in the world is to capture that energy, to be forward-leaning and progressive in our demands, because nobody ever gets what you ask for. You get half of it, so I'm going to ask for twice as much, and really push the envelope. I'm distressed, though, because I think our effort to be clear about our anxiety about moving forward has really created a picture of cliffs in 10 years that may not be the way in which that motivates people to act. Because none of us here can really say, I have the solution, this is where we need to head. And to demand that of anybody is crazy, because you need innovation. But I know how to get to tomorrow better. I know how to get to the next day. I know how to build a movement. And that's what we need to have. And so we need to take the youth energy, and instead of turning it into, a challenge where in 10 years, if we're not there, we're done, I think we need to turn it into a challenge to get to a better day tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. Because I am confident that change, if you look at the world, doesn't happen in incremental steps. It starts off that way, and all of a sudden, with the miraculous human spirit, it makes leaps and bounds. So just because I can't tell you how to move away from fossil fuels, which was our choice when we first discovered fire, I can tell you it is not the choice that we should be making tomorrow or the next day or the next day. We need to be smarter than that. It's not the future, and we will get there, even though I can't envision yet how that's going to be.
I think that the inspiration to go out and make a change is fantastic. There are island nations like Kiribati and Tuvalu who feel that they're facing imminent threat, and who are trying to talk to the world from a position with very little power. So is there a way we can help them, or what do we do with that? The 1.5 degrees in Paris was acknowledging that particular, the potential loss of those cultures.
Well, I'm not suggesting we either ignore the challenge or ignore our responsibility to the developing world and to those nations. They did not cause the problem they're now facing. We know who did. And we can't, wither away from that, and we have to address it. And part of the frustration I have is that, we are now, increasing our exportation of fossil fuels, as if when we do that, we don't have to count where they go and the emissions from those. So we're thinking maybe we're just increasing a little bit, when that's not the case.
Yeah.
So we have to not just recognize that we did cause the vast majority of the problem. We continue to do that, and if we want to live in a world that's fair and equitable, then that equity needs to be that we have to reduce our emissions, and we need to do it now and at levels that are uncomfortable for us to think about.
So we've talked about trying to inspire people to action, but a question that's coming up again and again is, what's your view on the role that agencies such as NOAA and the Met Service and so on should have on directly developing climate change policies, and related to that, in political environments that are hostile to that kind of activity?
Yeah, I knew that it would be a difficult transition back in January 2017 when I left Washington. I actually didn't anticipate it would be this difficult. Actually, let me say it right, this bad. I'm really worried about the federal agencies right now. I never thought I would be an advocate, which I'm now running an advocacy organization. I love it, I think it's great, but I spent my entire life in government. I worked in the local level, the state level, and the federal level. I've never met public servants that were as smart, as dedicated, or as committed as the people that I met at EPA. Every level of government has tremendous people in it. I am heartbroken for the fact that they are being treated as second-class citizens. They're being challenged in ways that are designed to make them leave the government, especially the scientists. It's the one thing that makes me angry, not just disappointed, because public service is the most noble profession, and there are not better people to run the government and move it forward than the public servants at those agencies. Yeah. That's it. And I think people here and elsewhere actually expect people to make decisions based on facts, to make decisions based on science, not seat of the pants, if I might say, bullying.
Yeah.
That's just not how we expect governing to work. And it's not what the public servants are going to support, because that's not how they're taught. That's not how they're brought up. That's not why they went into government. And so we have to defend them. We have to stand up, and we have to support them in every way we can. I had this brilliant, I think, message when I was leaving EPA. It was so eloquent. People asked me what they should do, and I told them to keep their asses in their seats. Now, eloquent it is not, but I meant it. Because every time you leave a seat, somebody else is going to come in. We have to help protect them. They have to know that we're still on their side. We have to be there for moral support, and we have to call it out when science isn't being followed and when the law is being broken, and we have to, litigate as much as we can and give our colleagues the kind of public support that they deserve. It's heartbreaking, frankly, right now. And I know that a lot of them are staying, and I thank them for it.
Absolutely.
And so, I had to live through some difficult times under the Bush administration when we were working on climate in the States. But I found that there were so many scientists at EPA under the radar screen in the closets that were working with us on these issues, and there's still a lot of folks doing the right thing, but they just need to keep their heads down. They need to stay there, and we will rise again, baby. We'll rise again.
So a number of people are asking, scientists are used to dealing in facts, talking in facts, and maybe uncomfortable coming out and translating in the kind of way you're advocating that we do. How do we get there from here?
Well, everyone is going to have to figure out what they're comfortable doing. And I know a lot of scientists, especially researchers. I love them dearly, but they're not sometimes the most gregarious human beings. They sort of like, I don't know what I mean. I mean, that's an overstatement, of course. But everybody just has to do what they're comfortable with. I'm not advocating that you get out of your comfort zone, and I'm not advocating that you stand up and face crowds of climate deniers and expect that the facts you put on the table will make a difference. There is now a vast majority of people that understand that the climate is changing. I used to get advice from the Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack, who was an individual that we argued a lot about a lot of things, but I loved him dearly. And he used to tell me that when you go to the farming communities in agriculture, talk about extreme weather, not climate change. Well, I think that's fine. And I did, but then they would be out fighting against climate change rules. So sometimes you have to listen, and sometimes you just have to buckle up and say the words that they may not want to hear. But I would not advocate, arguing with someone who's a staunch climate denier. I just think we need to get climate change to be spoken about more at our dinner tables, even if Uncle Harry is there and doesn't believe in it, or Aunt Harriet. Just get it into the ether, because it sort of just exists, folks, whether they want to talk about it. And honestly, there is a way of talking about the change we all want that is not controversial, that is a better world. And so there's many ways in which I think we can cut through the drama and get working with one another just on issues that present themselves, that we can all agree may solve climate change, even if that's not the reason why folks might be doing it. I don't think you need to wear your heart on your sleeve or put yourself at risk or in an uncomfortable situation. All I'm telling you is that people are dying for facts. Most people understand that climate is real and it's happening. And having you go out and really talk about this in ways that people can begin to understand can start the ball rolling. It may not seem monumental to you, but in some neighborhoods it will be what turns the tide. And frankly, I think that's where all the energy has to be and where it might work.
Yeah. So we've been asked, or you being asked, which of the presidential candidates has the best ideas and policies on climate change and climate action?
I've been asked that, and I act like every politician and dance around it as much as humanly possible. And mainly because I have more than one friend running for that position, so I hate to disenfranchise anyone. All the Democrats. The fun thing is that we used to, up until this election, even during the election when Obama was elected, we used to count climate success as one question. Yay! A climate question came up, or two. I think what I try to focus on is that everybody does seem to be putting plans on the table. Every one of them's different, which is great. Are any one of them as aggressive as I'd like to see? No. But will we get them there? I think so. So I'm going to take the cowardly route out, the route that doesn't disenfranchise the people that I know and love who are trying to be the next president, and just tell them all that they can count on one thing and one thing only, that I'll be annoying the hell out of them when they win. Maybe I should have just said that Governor Inslee had the best plan and leave it at that, because he was one of the first out. Oh, go figure.
Well, the overwhelming majority of the questioners here want to know, are you running for president in 2024?
Seeing as I'm so old and I'll forget my answer in 4 years, yeah, sure, no problem.
You heard it here
Yeah,
first, folks. So I just want to thank you again for such a wonderful time. And I think you'll agree with me that Gina's set us off on an amazing path this week. This week we want to explore these kinds of complex issues and think about how we can be the change agents. And so, Gina, I thank you enormously
Jenny, thank you.
for giving us this start to our week.
Thank you, everybody. I very much appreciate it. It was fun. Thank you.
Okay, don't run away. Now what we want to do is go to the annual business meeting. And this year, the annual business meeting includes presentation of all the Society's awards, recognition of the awardees and fellows, and the reveal of the new AMS logo. So please stick around, and then afterwards we'll have a reception and you can comment on the logo, meet people, and congratulate them all on their awards. And I think it's going to be wonderful. Okay, so this year, you just heard with Gina, what we were talking about was this idea of linking information to knowledge to society, really taking what we know, working with other people, building something bigger than any individual, and making a difference. So that's what we're trying to think about here this week. We're recognizing what we've done in the past and looking to where we want to go in the future. And so you've had the initial challenge. Okay. So this meeting, I want to just say a minute. You see how many people are here, and I think we're off to an incredible start. This couldn't have happened. It's record-setting by almost every measure. We have over 5,500 people who've registered to be here this week. 60 countries. We have over 800 students and at the conference and over 1,500 students here. So I think that's incredible too. Those people are going to give us almost 3,000 oral presentations and over 1,500 posters, and we have 100 exhibitors, over 100 exhibitors here for you to go and meet. So all of this doesn't happen, certainly not with just one person sitting up on or standing up here on the stage. It's an incredible effort, and I will say the overall program committee that I had, and I hope they're going to put their names up. There we go. Are amazing. They've spent almost 2 years trying to bring you this meeting. And I want to recognize all of them. And Ray Ban took on the job of chairing and kept us all going in the same direction to bring this here to you today. So thank you, Ray, and thank you, that entire committee. Equally, I want to thank all of the conference and symposium chairs. They're making sure that the incredible science and discussions that you have cover an incredible diversity of what we've learned in the field. The AMS staff, I don't know how many of you have had the opportunity of meeting many of them yet, but we couldn't do this without them. And they don't put that in the list of things I should say. I think we just have to recognize what they do. The many students who are going to be here this week, you'll see them in your sessions, supporting you and helping to make things run smoothly. Thank them, introduce yourselves. You'll find they'll be so excited if you do. I was. to our generous sponsors for the meeting. And in particular, I want to give special thanks to our Centennial corporate sponsor, Lockheed. And I want to, in particular, present a token of our appreciation to Lisa Callahan on behalf of Lockheed. Thank you so much, Lisa. This is the business meeting, and I want to talk to you about governance. We've had the tally of the election results, and I have the honour of introducing your new representatives to the AMS governance. So you know who you are. Be ready to stand up when I say your name. So our President-elect, Mike Farrar. Councillors Deke Arndt, Ruby Leung, Vern Morris, Judy Pullen, and our fifth councillor, Charlie Moledji. Thank you all. Now we have 5 councillors and 2 commissioners who are finishing this year, and I really want to also acknowledge everything they've done. These are not easy jobs. It's really an honour when you're elected to these positions, but you really put a lot of time and effort in. So thank you very much to Elizabeth, and again, please stand, Elizabeth Austin, John Cortinas, Tanya Franson, Dave Gotchis, and Adam Sobel. And to our 2 outgoing commissioners, Pam Emch and Donna Charlevay. And Doug Hildebrand and Kevin Gobert have been brave enough to take over from Pam and Donna respectively, so we thank them too. So now I want to invite all of the newly elected fellows on stage. The AMS Constitution states that those eligible for election to fellows shall have made outstanding contributions to the atmospheric or related oceanic or hydrologic science or their applications over a substantial period of years. This year's class of fellows, whose names you can see up on the screen, embody this sense of contribution to the community. Let's congratulate them all. Okay, I'm going to squeeze in.
Please.
Squish down. There we go. All right. So I want to take just a minute to talk about a few things that have happened during the last year that I'm really proud of, things that are coming from the AMS that I think are going to set us on a great path for our next 100 years. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. Being the AMS president has been amazing. I've met so many incredible people, and I've seen the investments of time and effort and energy being put into the AMS by its members, really to make this organisation an outstanding community that it is today and that we're taking forward to our second century. It's about 10% of the members are actively volunteering in this society, and I think we can be incredibly proud of the active community that we're part of. So we see ourselves as a society that welcomes all comers, but we can't just see ourselves as we have to be that society. We need to reflect on what we want the AMS to be and what membership in the AMS and the society itself represents. So over the last couple of years, the AMS Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Task Force has been working to give us some insights into how we should proceed in thinking about building our community. And I'm excited to announce that based on the DEI, Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Task Force findings and recommendations, Council has created a new AMS Culture and Inclusion Cabinet and approved the terms of reference for that cabinet. You'll be hearing much more about the CIC in the future, but I think this is really a milestone for the AMS, and I'm thrilled to be able to introduce it to you on my watch. There's been an enormous number of people invested in making this happen. So thank you to those people. Professional societies literally all around the world are reviewing or developing their policies for code of conduct. The AMS has convened a task force on professional conduct to bring our standards into the 21st century. Again, declaring what we expect of ourselves as individuals and as a profession is challenging and possibly confronting, but it's really important. It's absolutely important. So this task force has made some terrific progress, and this year we're expecting them to submit recommendations for consideration by Council and for consultation with all of you. The centennial year was the culmination of the work, or is the culmination of investment by the Centennial Committee. This group of AMS members has spent the last 5 years gathering input and developing a vision for the second century of the AMS. Council has accepted their recommendation for 5 centennial initiatives: lifetime career advancement, local collaboration networks, a member volunteer portal, partner organisation web, and historical research network. Those 5 initiatives share a common element of networks, so again, this synergy and collaboration. Former President Bill Gale chaired this committee through its mission. Bill will be hosting a town hall on Thursday at noon to gather your input, so please go along and gather and provide your input to Bill and the now sunsetting Centennial Committee. There'll be new organisations coming in to shepherd these initiatives. So once again, I want to offer many, many thanks to former President Gale and to the entire Centennial Committee for dedication over a period of 5 years to bring these opportunities and these new ideas to our community to help propel us forward. So please join me in thanking them. Okay. So as most of you know, the work of the Society is propelled predominantly through the volunteer service that's organised into the 6 commissions. Each commission has provided me with some major highlights from their commission in the past year, and I'll just share them with you. The Scientific and Technological Activities Commission, I'm just used to saying STAC. is responsible to the Society and the Council for Advancing Science and Technology by promoting the open exchange of ideas, strengthening our disciplinary communities, enhancing collaboration among these communities, embracing diversity, and cultivating the next generation of scientists and leaders. There are 30 committees under STAC and 6 interdisciplinary boards. Last year, STAC led 28 conferences and symposia at the annual meeting and 7 specialty conferences around various locations. At this annual meeting, there are 32 STAC-led conferences and symposia, and there'll be 6 specialty conferences this year. For the tropical community, I'll see you in New Orleans. STAC is supported by the work of 437 volunteers just in one commission. These volunteers include students and early career professionals and come from government, academia, and industry. The importance of diversity, equity, inclusion is reflected in STAC membership in meeting sessions, trainings, webinars, and in the STAC-led awards. The Publications Commission is responsible for overseeing the AMS technical journals and the other publications of the Society. Submissions to AMS journals in 2019 increased by about 10% compared to the year before, reversing a decline in 2017 and 2018. Beginning in 2020, authors of submissions to Weather and Forecasting and to Weather, Climate and Society will have the option of including a plain language significance statement, which will follow the abstract in the published paper. In recognition of the centennial, a special issue of meteorological monographs has been completed. The monograph, A Century of Progress in Atmospheric and Related Sciences, celebrating the American Meteorological Society Centennial, is available online as open access and can be ordered in book form from the AMS Resource Centre here. And good news for all of you authors out there, as recommended by the Publication Commission and approved by Council, AMS implemented a new journal charging structure in late 2019. Page charges were reduced from $145 to $120 per typeset page. Yes. The Education and Human Resource Commission supports members of the Society and continually pushes the field to be better for all of its members. The work on the board on women and minorities has been focused on creating a more welcoming and inclusive society through its support of underrepresented groups, and much of the work is incorporated into events throughout and surrounding the annual meeting. Our support of atmospheric science education from kindergarten through college continues to be stronger than ever and is exemplified by the robust 29th Conference on Education and the launch of a new certified AMS teacher program for K-12 educators, which has been implemented in coordination with the Commission on Professional Affairs. So you can see our commissions are collaborating. And I think that this is really exciting. This certified teacher program has great promise, I think. The Commission on Professional Affairs supports members in their professional activities, including overseeing the AMS certification programs. This past year was a busy year for the Commission. It included working on cross-commission efforts with the Commission for Education and Human Resources, with the new certified AMS teacher program, and also on the annual AMS Early Career Leadership Academy, or ECLA. ECLA is now in its 3rd year, and its goal is to, and it's intended to build and sustain a diverse network of early career leaders in weather, water, and climate science. Early career people, applications for ECLA are currently being accepted on the AMS website. The Commission on Professional Affairs is home to the long-standing AMS certifications, including Certified Broadcast Meteorologist and Certified Consulting Meteorologist programs. In 2019, the Society awarded 30 CBMs and 5 CCMs. There are currently 17 members of the Society who are duly certified as CBM and CCM. but there's only 6 who have the distinction of being a CBM, a CCM, and a fellow. So at this centennial meeting, we would like to recognise those colleagues with such a breadth of achievement. So please stand if you're one of the 6 and accept our congratulations. Theodore Fatauer, Paul Gross, Bob Bryan, John Tui Morales, Jay Trobeck, and Valerie Voss Crenshaw. The Commission on the Weather, Water and Climate Enterprise addresses the needs and concerns of all sectors of the enterprise and creates a sense of community by providing opportunities for frank, balanced discussions on points of contention or concern, educating policymakers on the value and operations of the enterprise, and developing and implementing programs to enhance information exchange. The CWWCE is currently comprised of about 200 volunteers serving on 4 boards and 17 committees. This includes 2 new committees that were recently initiated: the Ad Hoc Committee on Wildland Fire Weather Technology and Risk, and the Ad Hoc Committee on Oceans, Atmosphere and the Blue Economy. The Commission is an active one that sponsors several major events annually. It welcomes new volunteers, so please contact the Commissioner or Board Committee or Committee Chairs if you're interested in finding out more. The Planning Commission is responsible to Council to ensure the Society anticipates the changing needs of the members and to ensure the organisational and fiscal policies of the Society are commensurate with the role of the Society, and they do this through strategic planning and related recommendations. The Commission recently restructured its membership so the other 5 commissioners, as well as 6 at-large members and the immediate past president, form the Planning Commission. The Commission approaches its mission through a mix of long-term strategic thinking combined with creation of task forces to address specific goals. Currently, the Commission has 6 active task forces looking at governance, leadership development, at getting improved diversity and other demographic databases for the Society, early career involvement, future finances, and the certification process. The Commission is also responsible for overseeing the implementation of the Society's strategic goals. Now I'm going to go briefly and note the Secretary-Treasurer report. So all of the business covered in this session, the list of meetings we've sponsored this past year and the summaries of our budgets for 2019 and 2020 are included in the preliminary Secretary-Treasurer's report. It's available on the AMS website through the annual meeting app, or you can pick up a hard copy, not so green, at the back of the room as you leave and at the information desk. The final Secretary-Treasurer's report will appear in BAMS later this year, along with a list of all of our donors. The Secretary-Treasurer's report includes the names of those members who've passed away in 2019. So I'll just recognise those members and then I'll ask you for a moment of silence to acknowledge the loss of those members. Arnold Barnes, Philip Buffington, Russell Clark, George Coleman III, Grant Edwards, Wayne Evans, Joseph Gamble, Richard Greenfeld, Dick Greenfeld, William Haggard, CCM, James Harrington, CCM, Alex Herbst, Doug Jonas, Eli Katz, Helmut Krauss, Bill LaPenta, Roland List, CCM, Daniel Lufkin, William Marklut, Kikuro Miyakoda, Walter Monk, Hugh O'Neill, Norm Phillips, Robert J. Renard, Miriam Rothman, Roddy Rogers, Joel Rosenbaum, Joseph Schaefer, CCM, Eric Shettle, Paul Smith, Alfred Stam, Jerome Taylor, Kenneth Thomas, and Fuqing Zhang. So please stand for a moment of silence in honor of these colleagues. Thank you. As you know, we've led up to this 100th annual meeting with a major fundraising campaign. I'd now like to ask Susan Avery, past president and chair of the 100th anniversary campaign, to provide a brief report on the success of this effort.
Thank you, Susan, so much. Thank you, Jenny. I do hope that all of you were inspired by Gina and the conversation here. We've had a wonderful past 100 years. A lot of us really appreciate the professional family that we have here at AMS. And now it's time to really look to the future, and that's what this campaign was all about. So just let me give you a few numbers to where we stand. We've worked on this now for 4 years, and thank you to all of those who have given. Currently, we have raised $9.2 million. That includes current, thank you. Just to give you a little breakdown, that includes $4.4 million of current gifts, short-term pledges of $886,000, charitable gift annuities of $387,000, and estate commitments of $3.5 million. But what's really impressive is to look at the trends in giving over these last 4 years. This is now current dollars that are basically have come in, they're in the door, and it includes corporate giving as well. So in 2016, current dollars in for the campaign were $370,000. 2017, $448,000. 2018, $802,000. And in 2019, current gift dollars, $1.14 million. So $9.2 million, I've got 1 week. By the end of this conference, I'm going to see that at $10 million. I've talked to some of you already, and let's just make this happen. Thank you very much to all of those who have given. Thank you to all of those who will be giving by the end of this conference.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny.
And don't take Susan lightly, she means it. So now I want to ask Mary Glacken, the incoming AMS president, to join me as we recognize this year's AMS awardees.
Thank you. Good afternoon. We'll begin today with the Spiro G. Giotis Student Prize, and this is awarded to David Schwartzman. If you could join us on stage. Got some snappy music here. Keep up the pace.
Ready for a photograph? Point it down a bit, Jan, so that it doesn't reflect.
And next we turn to lectureships, and I'd ask both of these recipients to come on stage together. The Robert E. Horton Lectureship in Hydrology is presented to Susan Hogue, and the Walter R. Roberts Lecturer is presented to Walker S. Ashley.
Yes, please.
Tuesday morning, the 2 local chapter awards will be presented at the local chapter breakfast. I want to acknowledge them here. The local chapter of the year award is going to the Asheville, North Carolina chapter. And the local student chapter of the year award is going to the Ohio University student chapter. So would all of those in the audience associated with those 2 chapters stand? Thank you. We now come to 2 awards given to those involved in operational forecasting. We ask the recipients of both awards to come on stage together for a photo and your recognition, and don't be shy and starting to come up. The award for exceptional prediction, for an exceptional specific prediction, is presented to the National Weather Service Forecast Office, Omaha Valley, Nebraska, and it's Kathy Zapotokny, I think, that's receiving it. And the Charles L. Mitchell Award is presented to Jeffrey S. Tung. We'll now move on to the AMS Editors Awards, and these are presented to individuals who have performed exemplary reviews of manuscripts submitted to AMS journals. It's a wonderful opportunity to recognize some of the best reviewers for work that's typically done anonymously, but that is critical to the quality and success of AMS peer-reviewed journals. We have a number of editor awards to recognize today, and I ask all of those that are receiving these awards to come on stage now for a group photo. They are Christopher E. Holloway, Shodong Chen, Phil Bergmeyer, Glenn S. Ramine, Sergey K. Gulev, Angus Santoso, Robert M. Banta, Tim Boyer, Sergey Sula, Ardashir Ebtihaj, Jacob O. Weingrot, Casey E. Davenport, Eric Gillander, Sebastian Torres, Isla R. Simpson, Brian Joseph Squerty, and Adele Eigel.
Open.
The Society has 3 awards specifically aimed at outstanding early career professionals. I would ask the following 3 individuals to come on stage for a group photo in your recognition. The Nicholas P. Pfaffenkoff Award is presented to Lure Zian. The Henry G. Houghton Award is presented to Matthew R. Komanjian. And the Clarence Leroy Messenger Award is presented to Elizabeth A. Barnes.
Where's Matt? Get your exercise.
Who's got it? You really are getting an award. You really are getting that award. A wonderful aspect of our science is that it connects with the general public every day through the media. We have 2 broadcast awardees to recognize today who I would ask to come on stage together. The award for excellence in science reporting by a broadcast meteorologist is presented to Kate Parker, and the award for broadcast meteorology is presented to Alan Seals.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Yeah, no, open.
In addition to broadcast meteorologists, the public learns about our science and its impacts through journalists and authors of books aimed at both adults and children. We have 3 awards in this category, and I would ask the awardees to come on stage now. The award for Distinguished Science Journalism in Atmospheric and Related Sciences is awarded to Paul Vuzin. The Lewis J. Batten Authors Award for a book aimed at the K-12 through audience is awarded to Megan Herbert and Michael Mann, and neither of them are able to be here today. And the Lewis J. Batten Authors Award for a book aimed at the adult audience is awarded to Jeff Goodell. The Society awards a special award to an individual or group that has made an outstanding contribution in ways that don't fall into our other award criteria. This year, AMS is presenting a special award to the NOAA National Weather Service Forecast Office, Houston, Galveston, Texas. And I would ask the representative from this office to come on stage.
Congratulations. Sorry. Thank you, John.
The next group of awardees that we asked to come on stage for a group photo and recognition has made outstanding contributions across a variety of activities. I'll start with the Banner I. Miller Award, and it's presented to Jun Zhang, David Nolan, Rob Rogers, and Vijay Talapaganda. The award for Outstanding Achievement in Biometeorology is presented to Elizabeth Pate.
Congratulations.
The Helmut E. Landsberg Award is presented to Alberto Martinelli.
It makes his life.
The Francis W. Reichendoffel Award is presented to Jeff Linder. The Charles E. Anderson Award is presented to Gregory S. Jenkins. The Henry T. Harrison Award for Outstanding Contributions by a Consulting Meteorologist is presented to Carl Mozzarella, but he's not here today. And the award for Outstanding Contribution to the Advancement of Applied Meteorology is presented to Robert R. Sharman. The next award is an example of recognition provided to a team that worked over many years, and we ask that all on the team who are present to come on stage. This is the Kenneth C. Spengler Award, and it's presented to Joseph Klemp, William Shamrock, John Michaelis, Ginny Dudia, Wei Wang, Jordan Powers, David O'Gill, Michael Duda, Kelly Werner, Ming Chang, Cindy Bruyere, James Bresch, Bill Kuo, Ziquan Liu, Dale Parker, Ziyang Young, and Jamie Bresch.
What? Are we okay? Can we fit?
The Society has a long tradition of recognizing corporations that have made contributions to the community. The award for Outstanding Services by a corporation is presented to the Ball Aerospace and Technologies Corporation, and it's being represented today by Mackenzie Leistrup.
Congratulations.
The next two awards recognize teaching and mentorship, and we ask both recipients to come on stage. The Joanne Simpson Mentorship Award is presented to Ann R. Douglas, and the Edward N. Lawrence Teaching Excellence Award is presented to John A. Knox. I just knew that was going to happen. I had to speak right after John yesterday, like what a lousy position that is to be in any agenda.
Congratulations again.
The Society identifies two awards as service awards, and again, we ask both to join us on stage. The Cleveland Abbey Award for Distinguished Service to Atmospheric and Related Sciences is presented to Caroline S. Vera, and the Charles Franklin Brooks Award for Outstanding Service to the Society is presented to Robert M. Robber.
Come in here, John. Congratulations.
The following two individuals are being recognized for their contributions to science and technology, and again, we ask them both to come on to stage. The David and Lucille Atlas Remote Sensing Prize is presented to Ping Yang, and the Vern E. Sumi Technology Medal is presented to Joshua Werman.
Congratulations. Congratulations. A lot to juggle.
The following medalists are recognized for their highly significant research in atmospheric or hydrologic sciences and in the ocean's connection with the atmosphere. The Jewel J. Charney Medal is presented to Chang Fu, and the Swerdrup Gold Medal is presented to Peter R. Gent.
Congratulations.
The following medalists are awarded our highest research medals in oceanography, hydrologic sciences, and atmospheric sciences. And we ask them to come up now to be recognized. The Henry Strommel Research Medal is presented to Arnold L. Gordon, and the Hydrologic Sciences Medal is presented to Mark B. Perlang. And the Carl Rustov Rossby Research Medal is presented to Julia M. Slingo. Unfortunately, Julia is not able to be with us today.
Thank you, Mary. Now, I encourage you all to nominate your worthy colleagues for these awards. I think we all enjoy celebrating the people when they come up here, so recognize the folks that you know. Now, I'm really thrilled to be announcing the creation of 3 new awards. The Suki Manabe Climate Research Award will recognize outstanding contributions to the fundamental understanding of the Earth's climate system. The Joanne Simpson Tropical Meteorology Research Award will recognize outstanding contributions to advancing the understanding of physics and dynamics of the tropical atmosphere. And these are all outstanding people, but Joanne was a real hero of mine. And actually, I shouldn't have singled any of them out because Suki is, and the third award is the Warren Washington Research and Leadership Medal. I would also say that the Council has renamed the Mentorship Award that used to be named after Joanne Simpson. Now it's known as the Robert H. and Joanne Simpson Mentorship Award, in recognition of the wonderful work that Bob Simpson also did in mentoring scientists. So I'm really excited about this. I want you to think about nominating your colleagues for the awards we've recognized today and in these 3 new award categories. So please do that. We're closing this portion of the session with the highest honor bestowed upon an AMS member. Election to the category of honorary member. Honorary member is restricted by the Constitution to persons of acknowledged preeminence in the atmospheric or related oceanic or hydrologic sciences or their applications, or through furtherance of the advance of those sciences in some other way. Our procedures insist that addition of a new name to the roster of honorary members should be as much an honor for the society as it is for the individual. This year we have 3 new honorary members. Please join me in recognizing Jane Lubchenko. Jane, please come up. Where is she? There she is. I'm going to say a few words.
Thank you so much for this very, very special award. It's a deep honor for me, and it's just a real joy to be back at AMS and to hear all the phenomenal progress that's been made and all the great plans and fundraising that will enable them for the next 100 years. It was such a treat for me as the administrator of NOAA to spend time with and learn more about areas of science that I didn't really have much experience with. Meteorology and building of satellites, both of course were central to NOAA's mission. And I want to give a shout out and big thanks to all of the scientists at NOAA, experts at NOAA, who very patiently led me through and brought me up to speed on very basic things in both of those areas so that I could become at least passably fluent, but also become more of a champion for the totality of NOAA and the integration of the different aspects of NOAA that have to fit together seamlessly for its mission to be achieved. I also came to deeply appreciate the importance of federal scientists, federal workers, and want to give a huge shout out to all of you and all of them, because we need you each and every day, and I've seen how passionate, how knowledgeable, how dedicated you are. And so a round of applause for all of our federal scientists, federal employees, whom we need, with all of our thanks, our collective thanks. Much of the focus of today's session has been on knowledge to action. And that's really where our emphasis needs to be. That was behind Gina's call to action. It's been stated by the president-elect, as really a focus. AMS really epitomizes the relevance and the importance of science to society. And as Gina noted, it really needs to be relevant in a very personal way and relevant in a useful way. And some of the new horizons that I see are building bridges to make our science more relevant and useful. For example, in the provision of climate services, data, knowledge, products about how things are changing. Whether those services are provided by NOAA or other federal and state agencies, or whether they are provided by academics or by the private sector, doesn't matter to me at this point for the purposes of my remarks. But this is the kind of information that society is going to need increasingly. And so I just want to highlight it as a horizon that we need to be focusing on even more than we are now. At the UN Climate Summit in September, there was a lot of talk about the need for companies to declare their risk to extreme weather and climate change. That's going to demand more and more climate services so that companies can plan. So too governments need to plan, so too do individual citizens. So knowledge to action, anticipating the future, is really in the sweet spot of what this community can be helping to make happen. I know a lot of that's already underway, but I think it's increasingly important. The other connection that I want to emphasize is really what AMS does in bringing together different communities, whether they're scientists and experts from academia, from government, from the private sector, from NGOs. And it's in a society where they can come together. And that unity can enable things that can't happen in each of those different types of organizations. So AMS, congratulations on 100 vibrant years. And here's to a fantastic future of more knowledge to action, more relevance and usefulness from a very personal standpoint, but also bringing together different communities that really need to come together to be delivering what society needs. So thank you for this very, very special recognition. Congratulations to Julia Slingo and to V. Ramanathan. I have the utmost respect for them, and thanks to all of you. Much appreciated. Thank you.
The other two honorary recipients were unfortunately unable to join us today. First is V. Ramanathan, who was able to provide some words of thanks. So let's all recognize him as you read his words. Similarly, Julia Slingo, as a recipient of both the Rosby Medal and honorary membership, was able to provide some words expressing her gratitude. So let's recognize Julia's contributions. Okay, I believe there's a motion from the floor.
I move that the acts of the counselors and officers of the Society during the year ended 31 December 2019, done in the proper conduct of the business of the Society, be hereby adopted, approved, and confirmed.
Do we have a second? You're jumping the gun. Do we have a second? Second. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion passes. Thank you. At this time, I'll ask Mary Glacken now to assume the chair as the incoming president of the AMS. See this smile?
Don't run off, as you might know. So Jenny, I think we just want to present you a small token of our appreciation. It'd be hard to capture how much work it's been, but please accept this.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So the script says I get to say a few words. The only thing I'm going to say to you is pull out your smartphone and mark a year from now in New Orleans, and y'all come to my meeting. We'll have a great time. But you'll hear more about that, but I think we really need to live in the moment here in this meeting. It's been a great afternoon. So we'll get to the part now, which is revealing the new logo. And it's my distinct pleasure to present to all of you this for the first time. And it's a visual mark that represents the brand and reputation built over the 100-year history of AMS. As a trusted voice and respected advocate for weather, water, and the climate community, AMS represents a diverse and inclusive community that's deeply engaged in the multifaceted work of advancing science and increasing society's ability to benefit from that science. This logo brings a modern look to AMS that dramatically propels us into our second century as a leading scientific and professional organization. So if we could unveil the logo, please. So thank you. Yeah. So the colors of the three-dimensional globe represent the basic elements of science, the atmosphere, water, and earth. The waves separating the elements evoke the Rossby waves while adding to the dynamicism of the logo. The typography is simple, distinctive, and designed to be legible at small sizes. And it's also going to be a distinct part of our identity. It's classic yet modern with simple geometry and a warm clearness. So this new logo is going to be used in addition to the long-standing seal of the AMS. So we're not getting rid of the seal, but this will be joining that and become part of that. So that's, I think, a pretty good reason to go out and start our celebrations this week. As I close, I just want to ask the new council, which is all the new councilors that were elected, plus the ones that haven't rotated off, to join me in the front of the room for a very brief piece of business that we have to do before we can go off and celebrate with all of you. So I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting. Second? All in favor? All right. Thank you all. It's been great.
A singer in a smoky room, a smell of wine and cheap perfume.